Hello, everybody. This is Stanley County Fairgrounds weekend. I want to throw up a few things here. First off, we got Stanley County Fairgrounds this Saturday, 6 p.m. Going to be a great show. Let me throw up a couple of things. There is still trackside parking for $100. There are a few spots left. That includes one ticket. There's 25 spots available, but I think there's only like 5 or 6. Tailgate parking. That means you can park behind the trackside. It's $40 and includes one ticket. It's going to be about 3 rows behind there if you just want to hang out on the backside and watch the pool or hang out with your buddies. So it is 4 to go, no doubt about it. And, we're going to talk to Gary Chambers here in just a second. In fact, this is one of his, I call him one of his buddies. They both drive Fords, so they got to be on the same team. But we're going to put this up here real quick. April 12th, 6 p.m. Pro Farms, Classic Mods, Altered Farm, Pro Street Diesel, Pro Stock 4-wheel drive, Small Block Minis, Hot Street Gas, and Open Street Diesel, $20, $1,210. Stanley County Fairgrounds, just Google it. It's going to get you there. Let me pull this up real quick. I want to pull up one more thing if I've got it on my screen. Bear with me a second, folks. Yeah, let's see if I've got it. Yep. All right, here it is. I'm going to bring up Gary Chambers. Let me pull this off here so we can see old Gary. Gary Chambers driving the Bandit Pro Stock 4-wheel drive truck all the way out of Bremen, Ohio. I hope I'm saying Bremen, Ohio correctly, right? My southern accent kind of gets in the way sometimes. So you're out of Bremen, Ohio. You drive down here. Now, we were just talking pre-show. You're not going to be able to come down as much this summer, but what brought you, what got you coming down here to the western part of the state and running with the Carolina Truck and Tractor Pullers?
Well, I used to pull with Central Ohio truck pulling circuit, and it kind of lost the nut truck where there's only 3 or 4 of us. So I like competition. So in 2020, it was there was no pools hardly anywhere. So that's when I started going to Appalachian Outlaws. Pooled with them, started traveling a lot more, and then met Tony Federelli, and he pulls down there. So me and him got to talking, and become pretty good friends, and finally I said, all right, let's try to go down there and play with you guys. Good competition. Yeah, it's a good drive, but I like competition.
So, where was the first place you won down here in the South?
Tylersville, one of you guys was first one the previous year.
The previous 23.
Taylorsville,
yep. Didn't you win Saturday night in Pine Tops too? I think you won Saturday night in Pine Tops.
Or Friday night. Yeah. It was
Friday
night.
With what now?
I think it was Friday night there in Pine Tops. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've traveled on, and we talk about dirt a lot. If you're a puller, if you pull one place, the dirt's a little different than another place. What kind of changes do you have to make to that truck when you come down south? Is there any changes to it, or just maybe drive it a little different?
Definitely there's a few changes. First of all, you got to lose 2 inches of hitch height when I come down there, so that changes a bunch of things. And then the dirt is a little more sandier, even though it's clay. It's got a little more sand in the clay, so if it's too dry, you got to drive different. If the moisture's right, it's a pretty good track. So.
Well, let's talk. I've got a couple videos I've already tagged up, and I want to show those. One is Pine Tops, and one is Lee Daniels up there at Piedmont. And let's start off with, because we talked about that clay, and that track gets a lot of sun, Piedmont Dragway, so it kind of dries out during the day, and then as soon as the sun goes down, all the moisture comes up and comes alive. So let's pull this one up and add it on the page. So what did you think about that run? Would you have done anything different there?
Yeah, I probably would have maybe drove a little easier out of the hole, and then got on a little gentler instead of all at once. Not be so aggressive. So,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about it with the track conditions. You know, with the classes down here, they're normally kind of small, where you have 8 to 10 vehicles somewhere along in there. So you don't have that normal drastic change, not unless you get right there at sunset, and then that track may change a little bit.
right. Right.
So let's pull up Pine Tops, and I don't know if I've got Friday night or Saturday night, because I'll be honest, I was trying to find another one and I couldn't find it. So I'm going to add this one up, and this may be Friday night, maybe Saturday night. So let's add this one up here. So what did you think about that run?
That one there, it definitely took as much power as you pretty much throw at it, but I thought it was a pretty good run there.
Well, and I mean, you came back past the camera, you were flying, and that's something different about Pine Tops. It's a downhill track, so it definitely, you can get some ground speed, and if you ever look at the top, they'll have to cut a little trench for the sled in a lot of cases to hold the sled in place because it'll roll
Right.
downhill. If you had one place to pull in the south, where would you want to pull? Out of all the places we go down here.
I like Pine Top. If I could go down there every year, I would. So,
Yeah,
unfortunately, this year they don't have it. So,
yeah, yeah. It's a different venue. It's a great venue, but let's you were talking about Taylorsville. Were you there the year it snowed in Taylorsville?
no, that was the year prior.
The year prior.
So,
Okay, so it snowed in Taylorsville, and then it was kind of cold and rainy last year. So this year they've decided to move it to June 7th. There's going to be more information coming out. We're still working on a few things, trying to get the classes sorted. It's going to be a busy pulling season, folks. In fact, let me pull this up real quick because I got it. Let me share it this way. Da-da-da-da. And why are you not sharing? It's not sharing. Why are you not sharing? There it goes. All right, so looking at the schedule, this is the way it looks right now. The only thing that may change right now is going to be Hickory. They may move that up a little bit. They're still working on some things with that. What they're trying to do is get that set up for some classes coming in. But Albemarle, Booneville, May 24th. Glad to have those guys on. That's that's kind of Tony's. He likes to go to Booneville. Me and him have talked about that several times. Taylorsville, June 7th, June 20th and 21st in Greenville, Tennessee. June 28th in Julian, and July 18th and 19th, Saluda. That may be a 1 day or 2 day. They're finishing up that contract this week. Silk Hope is going to be a 1 day, September 20th, Rich Hill. That's a great place to go. I like going there because all the family stuff. I think you missed out the last
yeah,
couple
I
of
got
years because
that last year.
yeah, they got great food there. They got like Brunswick stew. Have you ever eat Brunswick stew? Have you ever eat that?
I have not.
Okay, we're gonna have to make you some, let you try it. It's pretty good. We're from the South. We try to make anything work. Have leftovers.
Well, cool.
Mooresville, Mooresville, and we're back in Albemarle. Now you see the classes that we got right now for Albemarle. Some of those classes are going to stay the same. Some of them we're going to flip them around. We're going to add light pros in there, probably Supermod 2s, and change some stuff around. So pay attention. That's going to be a totally different show if you go to the first one and then you go to the second one. That is definitely going to be a different show. Just remember, folks, we are now USA East under their sanctioning body. Lots of great sponsors that help the points out. And speaking of sponsors, I tell you, I want to pull something else up real quick while I'm doing this. I'm going to pull this up real quick. Just remember the trackside parking. But our sponsors, Steck Equipment, those guys have done a ton to help us out. I don't know if you've ever been. Did you go to Ware Shoals last year? I
Yes,
think you.
sir.
Okay, so there's always like these little itty bitty rocks that's in the top of that track. So and Chad, if you're on here, if you're watching, I can't think of the name of that little tool, but it shoves the rocks in the ground like 6 inches. So when you're going through the track, all those rocks are below the surface. So you're not like digging them up and slinging them everywhere and tearing everything up. But Steck is the one that has furnished that for us. You know, they are the industry leader in specialized turf equipment. They do everything from I call it the rock hider, but they do everything from turf golf courses, anything you can think about. They've got up Steck equipment, no doubt, quality innovation delivered from golf course superintendents to sports turf management. Hey, and even tractor pulls, it works out pretty good. So I'm going to pull this one back up here. Don't forget, there are a few spots left. If you want a spot, let me know. Let me know. You can message me here, or you can call Ricky Dry. That number right there is his number. So definitely, let me add that back to the stage. I told you I was going to struggle a little bit tonight. Something I want to talk about real quickly. Let me pull this up. And I'm going to have to blow this up a lot. I want to talk about some of your competitors, more or less, because you've
Yeah,
got some tough cookies in that class. And
definitely.
this is 2024. This is last year. We looked at Tony. He ended up winning the points, and that's all because Glenn Hedrick was in Hickory and had a driveline breakage. Once it broke, he was done. You know, he
Right.
couldn't do anything else with it. But Mike Eford, and we were talking about this earlier, your drive line. Tell us a little bit about what kind of drive line you have in that truck.
So I run a 1-ton drive line. I don't have a drop box like all the other guys that run down that way. I like running the 1-ton drive line. That way I can run pretty much anywhere on the East Coast. I've had good luck with it. It's highly modified, even though it's profab stuff. It's been highly modified to handle the power and the stress. So it's a lot different than what they're running, but it's the same. In the same about what.
Well,
So
and so in your class now, what would you say the horsepower range is? 1,300, 1,400, somewhere along in there.
1,300 be a good strong layer, maybe a tick more. So yeah,
And you think about it, a 1 ton driveline having to handle all that horsepower, 1,300 horsepower with a 1 ton driveline. You said it's heavily modified, and we were talking about pre-show. We were talking about some of those modifications. We would try things, and some things work and some things don't work so well.
that is true. I mean, we tried heat treating some of profab stuff a little stronger, so and then they get too brittle. So then you got to go back a little bit, and it's just been a trial and error over the last what 20 or 97. So that's what 28
And,
years, whatever.
and so,
So
yeah, you've been pulling since 1997. Have you been pulling with this truck only?
uh, I started with a half ton in '96. I pulled it twice, and I broke it the second time, and then I just got hooked. So in '97 showed up, I had this truck here, and I have pulled the guts out of it ever since. So
Well, I mean,
obviously,
you have a strong running truck, no doubt about it. We were talking about that. You've had a couple of wins. You're always normally in the top three or four. But there's a couple of times you fall down, and we were talking about earlier. You actually go to other, um, you pull in Southeast Ohio and Appalachian, and
yep.
sometimes you just go up there just to do a little testing and tuning, figure out what you got going on.
Yeah, I mean that's what I tried last year. I'd run down with them guys down there on that sandy or clay, and then come up here and not be happy with the truck for down there. So I come up here and make some changes, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But the dirt is so much different between here and there, so it's just messing with air pressures, trying to drive different, you know,
And having to
hit
deal with that,
equals,
and then having
it's
to deal with that 2 inch hitch drop also.
exactly. I mean, there was a couple of times I left the hits at 24 and just, try to run like I was down there, but change air pressures and weight stuff, weight distribution and stuff. So, yeah.
So looking at let's say the top four, you were number four, and you went and pulled in with the Appalachian group for a couple of pulls, and that's really what kind of took you out of points contention. You had some good solid hooks. They weren't like way on up there, but you were right there and Mr. Consistent on a lot of your runs. So
Yeah, definitely. Just
let's see. Let me.
consistency definitely pays off in the end, and it helps. But I did miss two, and we had a couple rainouts, so yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
is what it is.
those rainouts kind of put everybody on the same playing field there for a while because there at the end of the season, it was like every weekend, it was like something was, we were getting showers and all that kind of stuff. Matthew Carter's hopping in and saying hello. Anybody else out there watching us here tonight, just tell us where you're from. I got a question while we got a second. I got a question for you, Gary. It's coming up Easter. We talked about this a little bit before, and I want everybody that's watching, let me know. Do you like peeps or robin eggs? What's your favorite Easter
I
snack?
like heat,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. And we were talking about this before. It's kind of hard to see with the back out. It is sour watermelon peeps. Me and my daughter fight over them quite a bit. So I'm surprised she hadn't run in here hearing me talking about them and asked for one. But you know, going back to this real quick, looking at the point system here, you know, 454 for Tony, and you were right there at 377. And you look at those two, Benson doesn't really count because we actually didn't have a hook there. And those rain
Right.
out points just kind of, snuffed everybody together more or less. And Pine Tops
Yep.
was a rain out. We never registered for that one. So,
Yep.
but who would
Yeah.
you say? Who would you say is your toughest competitor in this class?
I mean, Tony and Glenn are both good competitors. It just depends. One day, Tony is top notch and on his game, and I've seen Glenn be just as good the next time. So those two guys are very tough to beat. They're very good running trucks. I know Monty had some issues last year, so hopefully he gets his up and running strong this year, and he'll be right there too. So
Well, and that's the thing. That's the thing about it. Monty Jennings, he always does really strong at the beginning of the season, and he'll have a breakage with about 3 or 4 pulls left, and then it's like by the time he gets it all back together, it's he can't make it back out. So hopefully he has a little bit better luck this season.
yeah, hopefully.
And we were talking about Mike Eford. He's placed number 3 in points, and he is the only guy that's running an automatic transmission. And we were talking about some situations like in Mooresville last year, in Hickory, and those kind of places. That that automatic might help you a little bit.
Yeah, in some places definitely where it's a little slick, and maybe where the moistures come up and made it almost too slick, a little bit of mud, but not really. You know what I'm saying? So it
Yeah,
definitely helps when it's slick.
yeah, and that's one thing. Combinations make the difference, no doubt about it. I'm gonna William Campbell from Virginia. Appreciate you joining in with us tonight. Do you know Gary Chambers at all? You just hanging out and watching us here tonight, but we appreciate
I
you.
know William pretty good.
Oh, do you? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he actually has a pool usually puts on in first of August for a big charity up there in Stitchersville. So we usually all try to make it up there. I know Monty and Tony and I as well was there last year, so try to support him.
So,
Ooh,
we got. Yeah, it's back up now. Yeah, you there?
yeah, there we go.
You there?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My internet or something dropped off here for a second, but yeah. So that's yeah. William said he knew you. Hey, at least he admitted to it. He could have not admitted to it.
That's true.
Um,
But, he's a Ford
uh,
guy, so that's why he did. He's got a good run of Ford as well. So
all you Ford guys kind of stick together, is what I've kind of gathered.
You got to. There's not as many of us as there is the Chevy guys out there. So
Now in the pro stock four-wheel drive class, if you have a Ford body or a Ford truck, it has to be a Ford engine, right? Or can it be a
uh,
Chevrolet?
90% of the places that's the way it is. There's a few places that it can interchange. So, but yeah, 90% of the time that's the way it is.
So if and you're running the Ford, it's not a Chevrolet under the hood, right?
I am running the Ford. Yes.
Okay, I didn't know. I figured Tony might be a little upset if he found out you were actually running a Chevrolet.
No, and I'm not running a Hemi either. So.
Well, we talk about pro stock four-wheel drives a little bit. Sammy Fraterelli, Tony's son last season, I think got a second place in Greenville, Tennessee, with that truck.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really starting to figure that truck out a little bit. He's going to be a tough competitor, especially with them having two trucks now. I think
Yep.
you're going to see something come along there.
Yeah, I think
Um,
both of
and
them will be.
Well, and that's the thing. I think last year because they were running Pro Mod and Pro Stock with the same truck, so they were swapping tires between
Yep.
classes. And finally, one night Tony was running somewhere, and he goes, "Man, I'm not changing the tires again. I'm not changing them. We're just going to run them."
Yep.
Oh, Casey's just got a Ford tractor. That's the only difference. That's why it sounds so good because it's got a Ford motor in it. Casey, do you have your stuff ready to go now? See if he responds back. I hope he does. Let me do it this way. That's one thing. This show this weekend, and I'm gonna pull this up again. Yep, there he goes. He hadn't responded to it yet though. What I want to talk about the classes, the Pro Farms. That's a tractor class, guys. If you hadn't seen that class, in fact, you see this one right here, the Red Iron Special. That's kind of a I don't know if I can put that up there, Casey, but I got the gist of it. Casey said does a bear crap in the woods, so I guess he's got his back together. Glenn and Kathy's listing in Burton. Oh, Glenn and Kathy are watching too here tonight. I guess he
Good.
figured he was going to try to figure out a little bit on his competition. Is Kathy going to be driving some this year, Glenn? That's what I want to know. Because last time Kathy started driving, she almost booted Glenn out of the seat in that pro stock. But talk about some of the other classes we got here. Classic mods. That's no doubt about it. That's a cool class to watch. You know, when I first started announcing, I was kind of like, this is kind of. But those guys, man, when they hook up and roll, I mean, it's the only class I've ever seen that started running on a mini rod sled, and Logan had to put him on the big sled because he couldn't stop him with a mini sled. And those guys put on a heck of a show. Altered Farm, guys, that's a class that kind of goes way back in the day, and they're limited 3,000 RPMs, and those guys, they're not the fastest, but it kind of shows you how pulling off started back in the day. And Pro Street Diesels, you know what those are. If you don't, 2.6 Pro Street Diesels, they're always fun to watch. Pro Stock four-wheel drive, small block minis, those guys are starting to figure out that mini rod sled. And you watched at the end of last season, they were picking up ground speed, they were picking up the front end. And this year, they don't have Mike Ward to contend with because he sold his. So that's going to be an interesting class to watch. Levi Sharon with the hot street gas. That guy's pretty much untouchable in that class right now. I got to get some more. And open street diesels, guys. That's kind of a open street class. You can have some performance upgrades. You got to have some driveline children and some stuff like that. If you're interested in any of these classes, contact us. We'd love for you to join us at the shows. CarolinaPullers.org. A lot of information's there. Or just hit us up on the website. Um, yeah, yeah, she's going to beat up on the Fords this year. So that's what
Hmm.
Glenn said. Yeah. Oh, too bad Tony's not watching. I'm sure he would start saying a little
Oh,
something right
I'm
there.
sure.
But now I'm serious. Kathy, she got in there and she won one, and she got like a second and a third right back to back. So that's that's the cool thing about a lot of these classes, in the Pro Farm class, the Classic Mod class, the Pro Street Diesels, the Pro Stock fours, small block minis. all these classes are so tight. One little hiccup out of the hole, one little hiccup at the other end, and the next thing you know, you went from having a first place run to down there in the middle of the pack.
That is true. It don't
And
take much these days.
where and we talk about Southeast Ohio and Appalachian a little bit. Where when you go to Southeast Ohio or you go to Appalachian, you talk about are there any other rule changes between the hitch, or is everything else pretty much the same besides the hitch?
No, the tires actually dropped to 35-inch tires instead of the 36.
Oh,
So
okay.
that is the two biggest: the tire size and the hitch height. So
So
outside
what?
of that, big motors and just trying to drive them, hook them up.
So when you do you change the tires when you run up there compared to down here, or
Well, last year I started on the big tires down south, and then I couldn't not make them work. So I went back to my 35, and then it seemed like it helped. So I didn't have to change the chassis as much. So I don't like changing the tires. So I stay with the 35, and I think it works the best. Makes my
well,
truck happy.
well, I and this is not I'm not trying to get in trouble here, but I'm going to be honest. A pulling vehicle is like your wife or your woman. If she's happy, leave her alone. Don't do anything to disturb it. Just run
That is true.
it.
Yep.
Well, Gary, one other thing I want to ask you here tonight is we're starting to wrap things up here in a little bit. So we've already talked about you're going to be kind of all over the place. You're going to run some down here. You're going to be in Southeast Ohio. You're going to be Appalachian.
Yep.
If when you're looking at 2025, what is your primary goal of the season? Do you have any particular goals for 2025 you want to figure out?
I want to make it where my wife can drive a little bit, and I can drive, and I want to make the truck more consistent than it was last year. So it, I want to get the chassis worked out, all the bugs out of it. That way, I can be more competitive, maybe in 26.
Well,
More
and
consistent.
yeah, so you're looking consistency next season. You just want to be consistent every run. Now, your wife, has she ever driven before prior to this season?
He has never drove on the track. He's launched it in the yard, seat clutch, and all that good stuff. But her first pull will be this year.
Oh wow. Are
Yeah.
you a little nervous, or do you think she might be a little nervous more than
No,
you?
I think she'll be a better driver than I will be. So I'm not nervous. The only nervous I'll have is that I want to be able to drive it again after she gets in.
It might be kind of like Kathy and Glenn. You might have to build a second truck just so you have something
Yeah,
to play around with.
yeah, but that's expensive too. So especially these days.
Yeah, this sport is not always the cheapest. JR, man, I'm getting tongue tied. JR is joining us here tonight. That the legendary Bandit. Good evening. Good evening, JR. It's good to see you. We see you all the time. I see comments from you all the time on Facebook. Guys, I'm going to pull up one other thing I want to mention here. If you got the opportunity, let me switch pages real quick. Give me just a second. I should have just pulled up. I want to mention Angry Duck Graphics. Um, those guys, they do a lot to help promote motorsports just in general. So I definitely want to give a shout out to them, and I'm gonna pull up ours because there's a ton of them. So if you have a particular vehicle you like to watch, like Dirt Candy's on here, there's a bunch of other ones on there. If there's a particular um, vehicle that you just look for it here on Angry Duck, a lot of them use it. Wild and Blue uses them. So let's see, where is it at? I know it's somewhere. There it is. And there we are. Let me add this to the screen. So if you look at it right here, there's a ton of stuff you can get. Shirts, hats. There, we are going to widen this up a little bit. So, um, and I've got a couple of flex fit hats. You can wear them all day. You don't. I mean, you know,
I have
they're
one on
great.
right now. Very nice.
Yep. I wore mine to work the other day, and I took it off, and it's still at work. So, so you know, they got the old style trucker hats, sweatshirts. We might need a sweatshirt this weekend because it is going to be a little bit cooler. I think the high Saturday is like 63 degrees or 68 degrees, something like that. So it's going to be a little bit cooler. But you can go right there to their website. $25 for a T-shirt, hats $20, kids stuff. I mean, all different sizes. We will be having some different colors and some different stuff, hopefully coming out a little bit later. So go to angryduck.com, click on Carolina Truck and Tractor Pullers. Just scroll the whole page. They got all kinds of stuff. They got some stuff that I don't even know what they are, or have never met them, but they got cool looking shirts. So Angry Duck Graphics, want to give a shout out to them, and thank you to Steck Equipment again for helping us out all pulling season. And let me remove that. Gary, we're going to wrap things up right here. Buddy, I appreciate you joining us. Are you going to be able to make it this weekend?
I am not going to be able to do it this weekend. I'm not quite ready with the truck, but I'm close. So maybe the 24th, Greenville, that might be possible. So
that's a good track too.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. And when you have those early shows, we've ran into it down here, is that you have those early shows. Sometimes you can't get all the parts, you can't get all the stuff in time, and sometimes you're able to work 24 hours, 7 days a week and get it done, and then sometimes it's just kind of like, let me just make sure it's right before we get it there. So.
Yep. I got to travel 5-6 hours, and I want to make sure it's right before I travel. So.
I definitely understand that. Gary, I appreciate you joining us here tonight. We're going to be wrapping things up. Appreciate everybody joining us. If you got any questions or anything, go to carolinapullers.org or go to our Facebook page. We got a TikTok page, and just message us. If we can answer your question, we will. We'll send you to the right person. I surely don't know everything. I know Gary doesn't, even though he knows more than I do. And but we look forward to seeing you out there this weekend. Stanley County Fairgrounds this weekend, Saturday, April 12th, 6 p.m. Big show. Unfortunately, Gary's not going to be able to join us, but there's going to be plenty of other iron in the pits. I guarantee you that much.
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll see y'all next week, probably. I'm going to come on here. We're going to talk about Stanley County and some other things that's happening and going on and give you updates as much as we can with the schedule. So, guys, enjoyed it tonight. We'll see y'all tomorrow night. Gary, I appreciate you joining me here. And I'll make sure next time you come down, I don't stick a Chevrolet sticker on the tailgate or anything.
Sounds good.
All right, guys.